Good evening, folks. It's Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Tonight, I have Anthony DiMaggio, 15-year lieutenant in the Yonkers Police Department. Tonight, we will discuss the Memphis 5, the Memphis police officers, and the beating of Tyre Nichols. Good evening, folks. I'm Freddie Vasquez. Tonight, police officer beating that left Tyre Nichols dead. Let's get a perspective from a 15-year law enforcement veteran, Anthony DiMaggio. He will give an assessment based on his experience. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Help me welcome Anthony DiMaggio, former Yonkers Police Lieutenant, 15 years on the force. Long time, immaculate record. Good evening, Anthony. How you doing, man? How's everything?
All right.
As they say, you clean up nice. You ever heard that saying before?
I did. I actually said that to the doctor at the little kangaroo hearing that the city set up in the mayor's conference room.
Oh.
Because when I saw him on the day of the evaluation, he was scruffy faced and had one of those doctor's coats on that was 5 sizes too big and hair all over the place. And then I see him at the hearing and looks like a gentleman, clean shaven and got a nice suit that fits him.
Well,
sort of a backhanded compliment,
The first time I heard that term, it was an Italian who said it to me. It was a friend of mine, actually, and I didn't know what she meant by that. So now I say that to people whenever I see them for the first time. Dressed up nice. You clean up nice. Web, interesting topic tonight. Greetings to Freddie and Anthony. Greetings, Jose. How you doing, man? It's good to have you on tonight. And by the way, really quick, I do have a phone number if you want to call in live, actually, and ask questions. So it's a 914-228-2894, and we'll get you on. Please stick to the topic at hand. If you have a comment or a question for Anthony DiMaggio, or you can comment on the comment section and ask your questions there. Anyway, tonight we're going to discuss the incident that happened in Memphis, Tennessee, with the 5 police officers and maybe more, actually, who beat a gentleman, a man to death, pretty much. He died of his injuries later on. The man's name was Tyre Nichols, and that's kind of set off a firestorm. We're back to this scenario and situation again. Slight differences, but it's the same thing, So I'll let you talk and let me, you're the expert here, and I'm definitely interested in hearing what you have to say as well.
Well, I watched the videos. I didn't watch them repeatedly, but I watched them once or twice. And, I saw a lot of things that just made me, like this. Ideas all over the place watching those videos. And, what most people see is 5 cops beating the snot out of a guy who's offering what we call passive resistance. Not fighting with him, not throwing punches, kicks, or anything like that, but just passive resistance. He was hesitant to put his arms behind his back. And, the idea that you could just go ahead and beat the snot out of a guy because of passive resistance is a very antiquated idea in the police profession in this country. You just can't do it. And it's unjustifiable and it's wrong and it's horrible. And for the most part, the entire profession throughout this country has gotten the idea. They've gotten that memo. From what I saw in that video, or those videos, that department has not. And in my opinion, that problem goes all the way up to the brass. Audio, Fred.
I'm sorry. I'm setting up my phone here. So, by the way, the phone number is there scrolling down. Someone asked the number again. You said passive resistance. Is that what you said? Passive resistance.
Right.
He I wondered too, also, why he ran, and initially, especially because he initially, I mean, essentially he did nothing wrong. I mean, there was nothing that he did wrong, and but I was wondering why did he run? And a lot of people are saying he was scared. He was afraid of being. Look, I know what happens, and I've seen these incidents, but I don't ever feel afraid with police officers, even if they pull me out. My automatic reaction, and I'm not saying he did anything wrong. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying my automatic reaction is just to comply, right? No resistance at all whatsoever, right? Regardless if I don't
Right.
agree with what they're saying, right?
Well, that's what you're supposed to do, sure.
So why do you think in this situation, he presented that passive resistance, as you say, or exhibited
Well,
that
I mean,
passive?
it's tough to get into the mind of another individual, but I saw that a lot. Um, it could be that they're scared. People who do that, it could be just partially that they're scared. Could be partially that they have negative attitudes towards the police and just don't want to listen to them. Um, Fleeing from the police when a cop is trying to pull you over, just about the worst idea you can have. Because especially if you haven't done anything wrong, because if you're a cop and you go to pull somebody over for a traffic infraction, and all of a sudden the person just starts taking off. Well, the first thing that goes to your head is, what did I just stumble onto?
Right,
I got a warrant for murder or for robbery.
right, absolutely,
Does he have 6 kilos of cocaine in the car? I mean, what did I just? He's not running to avoid a traffic citation for running a red light.
right.
Silly to put people's lives at risk for that. So the first thing that goes through your head as a cop is, this is bigger than what I think it is. Um,
Yeah, that's true, and I'm not, and I would do that actually. I grew up in the hood, right? And I
right,
grew up, it's just part of the environment that you grew up in. You just, but naturally, you're gonna know people who are out there maybe hustling, selling some weed and stuff, and
mhm,
cops are gonna come by. You're gonna, you're not selling weed, but you're there because you know them. You're talking to them. I did music, and I was a recording engineer, had a recording studio, so a lot of guys that hustle, they want to do rap music, so I would talk with them. And there would be times when cops would come up, right, and they roll up, and they jump out. They call it jump out boys, and run up, and I wouldn't move, right. I would just look at the cops. I had nothing to be scared of. I didn't have anything in my pocket illegal. I wasn't doing nothing. I just was there talking to people. That's not illegal, right? But obviously other guys would kind of take off a little bit. But I noticed that they wouldn't mess with me, right? And maybe because
right.
they knew me not to be, but they would always kind of just go around me, right? And so that maybe to anyone, if you're not doing it, and I want to just really highlight that, because if you're not doing anything illegal, just comply. Comply. And I'm not saying that anyone deserves to die if they don't comply or they're exhibiting passive resistance. I'm just saying, just comply, right? Fight it in court if you're, you whatever, just comply.
Well, whether you are or are not doing something illegal, you should always comply. I mean, that's the easiest way to yeah, to avoid misunderstandings, or in the case of what we saw in Memphis, there's no way around it. I mean, what they did was just brutal, and
Right.
I blame not only them, but I blame the brass. Because like I said, what you see in that video is just too just looked a little bit too routine.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
kind of looked like they did that every day. And from what I was reading about that unit in the New York Times article that I read, um, those cops were encouraged to be very aggressive. They were pulling that guy over allegedly for reckless driving. Now, I didn't see any video from before the stop. You know, um,
I also heard that there was a personal issue between one of the cops and the guy, that he had maybe been with his wife. I don't know if you heard that. Yeah, there was something that one of the officers' wives and that guy may have had some kind of relation. So, that start if hearing that, I was like, maybe that makes kind of this, because I just don't understand the brutality of it, right? I mean, I get it. I know some guys cops may get upset, they have to run. Why you gotta make me chase you, guy? But the brutality of that was
yeah,
like
but those
personal.
days have been over for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, even if you kind of just be a little rough and handling them, not being like punching people, but I mean that was just very brutal, man.
I
And
think it's
so
pretty clear that they expected to get away with that behavior. Had that guy not died, they probably would have gotten away with that.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
um,
I mean, the way they just sat him up, after they handcuffed him, as if the guy,
yeah. I mean, it didn't make any sense.
yeah, And then the way the EMTs reacted, right? There was no reaction. They just kind of like that's every day. This is the Scorpion Squad, right? That's what they were called, the Scorpion
Right.
Squad, right?
Well, that's another problem. I mean, I don't understand that at all. But I mean, we'll get to that in a minute. But it's they were knocking him around. They were hitting him with the asp. They tased him. They emptied a can of OC into his eyes. I mean, I went a whole career. I never used the taser or the
Really,
OC. I didn't like either of them.
really, in 15
No, I
years,
mean,
never.
no, I mean, no, people can say, okay, well, you can pull people's arms behind your back pretty easily because you're a bigger guy. Maybe that's true, but no, I mean, I never liked them. There's all sorts of things that go wrong with those weapons, and but I mean, just aside from that, when you have a guy on the ground already, when you already have your arms around him, you have 5 cops holding him. There's no need to tase him
Right,
or to dump your OC into his eyes. At that
right,
point, if he's fighting with you, throwing punches and kicks, then that's a different story. But he wasn't.
right.
He was just kind of, they were telling him, "Give us your arms, put them behind your back, or lay on your stomach." And he was doing what I've seen so many people do. Okay, I'm doing it, and he's yelling that he's doing
Right.
it, but he wasn't
Yeah,
really doing it.
yeah.
And
And you know what's something I've seen cops do also is they'll yell "stop resisting" as they're punching the person. Stop resisting, right? It's almost like they're yelling to stop resisting, so people can hear that the guy is resisting, and to justify the punches. Stop resisting, right?
yeah, but
Like give
again,
them a
like I
chance to
said,
actually stop first.
those days are long over. It's
Maybe in Yonkers, but obviously in other places they
Yeah, I
still
guess not.
exist.
I mean, I was really surprised. You don't see
Yeah.
stuff like that around here, and I don't think it's. People said, "Oh, well, it's the South, it's Tennessee." I said, I don't think that's fair. I don't because
No.
you don't see stuff like that every day.
No, I don't think
And
that's the norm. And I was pulled over once in the Midwest by cops. I was a gated community, so it was late night, so I'm sure they kind of, were wondering why. And I had, New York plates and stuff, but I belonged there, but they were nice to me. They were very kind, they did kind of
yeah,
have my hands up a little bit, but then they saw, I had a t-shirt on and some, loafers and stuff. So, but they were very kind. So I've never had a bad experience with police officers in the South, really anywhere. I mean, I've never, had a bad experience with police officers as a Hispanic man. I'll be honest, I have to say.
well, yeah, you have to judge each department, on its own merits, and that department, from what I understand, what I read in the New York Times and a couple of other articles, was that the chief down there, Chief Davis, I think her name was. I don't remember her first name. Fairly new, a couple of years. She was brought in, I think, after the George Floyd incident in um,
That
what was
was
it
in
again? Minneapolis,
Mississippi. No, George Floyd, right? I'm thinking of Mike Brown. Yeah, Minneapolis. Yeah.
right? Um, and she was expected to make all these changes. I don't really know if bringing her in was more of a political move for whatever reason, because she appears to have made some pretty serious mistakes. Okay, she moved into Memphis. She moved into a neighborhood where she noticed with her own two eyes that reckless driving was a problem. She was seeing a lot of reckless driving out on the streets. So when she put that unit together, and the unit is basically just a street crime unit. We have them here in Yonkers. Um, Eric Adams sort of campaigned on bringing them back after De Blasio had eradicated them. They're very productive. They're very good units if you staff them with the right kind of cops.
Anti-crime, right? It's like
Anti-crime, right? So it's basically plain clothes, or sometimes they're wearing these quasi-uniform type of things, like that unit was. And their target is,
Blacks
street
and
level.
Hispanics. No, I'm joking.
Street level crimes, getting guns off the street. In years past, it was any type of drug arrests that you find, even possession and things like that. They've moved away from that in recent years to just drugs in significant amounts. But more guns. The focus has been more on guns and gang related violence in recent years. That unit was called the Scorpion Unit, which I didn't read this anywhere, but I'm willing to bet every dollar to my name that was what they call a backronym. A backronym is an acronym where, instead of starting with the phrase like you only live once, so they say YOLO. Okay, that's an acronym. A backronym is you start with the word, and then you come up with what you want the letters to mean afterwards because you like the word and you want to give your unit that name.
Right, and it did stand for something. Yes, it did actually. I'll look it up, but you're right, it did.
Yeah, I know what it stood for. It stood
Oh, you
for
got it.
Street Crime Operations Restoring Peace in Our Neighborhoods. Now that's very crafty. You're taking your street crime unit, and you came up with a word that starts with SC, and you added all this other stuff afterwards. But the problem is you're calling it the Scorpion unit. Now, I'm not being facetious when I say this. That's a big problem. Well, what's a scorpion? I mean, they're generally only known for one thing, right?
Yeah,
You might have
predator.
experts on scorpions who know a lot about them, but the rest of us only know one thing that they do, right? I mean, they corner another living thing.
Your predators, they sting.
Yeah, they sting it,
Right.
they inject it with venom, they kill it, they eat it, and they leave what's left for some scavenger. So, I mean,
Right.
You're encouraging aggression just in the name of
Right.
the unit.
So it's a psychological thing there, right? Just the name
Yeah,
alone
absolutely.
psychologically,
Sure.
impacts them already, and it gives them maybe, maybe a subconscious aggression, or maybe a consciously
Yeah.
aware aggression, right? And they go out there with scorpions,
mean-
baby, right? It's like a football team, right? If you call like the like Mount Vernon Razorbacks, right? I imagine you just, so.
Somebody said to me, another cop I was talking to this week, he said, a scorpion unit. He said, why not just have a let's go kick some ass unit? Like, that's basically what you're naming.
Right. Just be straightforward, right? Just say, stomp you out unit, actually.
Yeah,
why don't we
because
do that?
Right. Yeah, you're encouraging that uber tactical sort of go out and make the arrest no matter what, and sort of mindset, and that mindset is antiquated. One of the first things that, well, I don't know if it was one of the first things, but one thing that Chucky eventually did, Chucky Gardner, when he was the commissioner, was he changed the name of our citywide street crime unit in Yonkers. He changed it from the street crime unit to the Pattern Crimes Task Force, and he changed not only the name, but he changed basically the entire function of the unit, because in Yonkers, each precinct had its own anti-crime unit, which was basically a small street crime unit. The way we described it: plainclothes, unmarked cars, patrolling, working with confidential informants, targeting mostly guns, drugs, violent crimes, things like that, with prevention being the main goal.
Right.
But we also had a citywide unit just like that. It's called the Street Crime Unit. My buddy Lou Venturino was in it. A lot of other cops, some friends of mine. I think Detective Kilgore was once in it. And one of the things Chucky did was he said, all right, no more of this type of police work. Not from that unit. We'll still have the anti-crime units and the precincts doing it. But for that unit, we're going to change the name of it, called the Pattern Crimes Task Force. And what they're going to do is they're going to be this little task force that tries to disrupt patterns in real time. So there's been a string of gas station robberies over on Central Avenue over the last month. Now, obviously, something's going on. It's probably the same crew hitting all these gas stations. So they'll send that unit out in plain clothes to start working that case.
Right.
Setting up surveillances, talking to people and things like that. And so branding matters. You don't want to have a scorpion unit. I mean, that's it's very indicative. And she liked that name, apparently, the chief.
Yeah.
And the mayor down there touted the success of the unit in his State of the City address down there. He was talking about how great it was. 500 and something arrests in the first 2 months, 200 and something guns. I mean, if you're getting 200 and something guns in 60 days,
wow,
you're basically turning people over by their ankles and shaking them until guns fall out of their waistbands. It's like,
over there, also the gun laws are a bit different. So, people have more access to guns, but going back to the psychological effects, the police departments know this, right? And so maybe that was intentional in naming it like this tough, scary name. And I'm just thinking about something I was reading in regards to the type of police cars and what they put on the police cars, and even the horn. Like in the city, if one of the NYPD cars get behind you and they hit that horn, that's like a sonic boom type of woo woo. You ever had that behind you? That thing's scary.
I don't think I have.
Yeah, it's frightening if it startles you if you're not aware, and they want you to get out the way, right? It's not like a siren, it's like a woo, 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 and it's really loud. And so it's very intimidating, right? And even the grill that they put in front of the cars, they said that, they want them to look kind of mean and stuff. So when they're behind, so just to kind of psychologically get in people's heads and make them, afraid, have some fear. I was reading something like that. But yeah, if you ever, that thing is scary. And I hate
those big grills, those big, almost fence-looking things in front of the car.
And I know they're from hitting cars, also, doing pit maneuvers.
It's an extra level of protection because cops often have to drive fast in pursuits and things like that, so they add that.
Yeah, but they're saying like all these different things make it look really aggressive. The way they put the lights and the stuff like that they actually think about that stuff just to give that aggressive look and stuff. But so yeah, psychological obviously plays a big role, and I'm sure it's got into these guys' heads. And I was just showing there a picture of the one white officer involved, right? And so I said to myself, they were 5 black officers. Well, look, no white police officers were involved this time. And then I watched the video from the beginning, and this guy sets the tone. He says in the beginning, I hope they stomp his ass. And that's exactly what they did. Yeah, this is the guy. Look, it's Pat. You like to tell jokes. You know Pat? It's Pat from Saturday Night Live. They didn't know if it was a woman or a man. They made a movie about it too. It's Pat. You don't know what it is. So everybody spends the time trying to figure out the gender of this character, Pat. And it kind of looks like this guy here. He doesn't look like he doesn't look like the other guys, right? The other gentleman in the police in that Scorpion group, But he's the one that says, and you can hear it in the video saying, "I hope they stomp his ass." That's what he says, and that's exactly what happened. It's like he set the tone, right? And I'm like, oh man. There was a white guy involved anyway, right? I want to play the video. You want to play the video in the beginning, or what do you want to do? Did you have something else? All right, so let's play from the beginning. And this is actually when the guy, the officer that I just showed there, says that, hope they stomp his ass. And I'm going to play that now.
Go ahead, blow the up. Damn, I didn't do anything. Hey, I didn't hurt you. Ass brown. All right. On the ground. You don't do that, okay? Get on the ground. Get on the ground. Okay, change your ass. All right, I'm on the ground. Turn around. That's all. Turn around. Please change on the ground. I think I changed you. Get on the ground. One. Now, I tase it. All right, okay. All right. Break your shit. Okay, dude, damn. Put your hands on your back. Bitch, put your hands on your back. Okay, stop. I'm gonna knock your ass. Hey, you guys are really doing a lot right now. Bro, lay down. I'm just trying to go home. Lay down. Man, if you don't lay down. Well, I am on the ground. Put your hands on your stomach. I got you. Stop. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, see, big mistake there. They should never have let him get up. They should have kept him on the ground and just, got him handcuffed right there. I don't know how he got up. It should have been over right then and there. It really should have been.
They have him on the ground. They're saying, get on your stomach. I mean, and here's another thing I also have wondered to myself when police officers are giving commands like that. I've learned in dealing, with students, they call them alternative school, high schools, kids that, may have special needs and stuff, how to engage and speak with them. And they say when if there is several staff members, not everyone should be shouting out commands, right? Or talking at the same time. It should be one person that's speaking to the individual, giving the directives. So here it's like everyone's shout. That's another thing that would confuse people, right? So, and it's scary, right? You got all these people just shouting at you. And so do they ever teach, in the academy, in police training to, when there is multiple officers like that, maybe one officer give the commands and speak to the suspect, just to not confuse things?
No, they don't teach that. But I mean, I understand why it might work better.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there are no magic tricks to try to make people comply. Some people just want to bark back at you. Right. I'm not saying they should have tased them. I don't know why you would ever tase somebody who's already down. I've never even seen that. I don't know if it's allowed by policy or not. To me, I don't see what the utility of it is. I think it's excessive, just especially when you have 5 cops there already.
So they don't train you guys to, at any point to tase people when they're on the ground? That's not like any part of the training?
not that I remember. I think I went through taser training once or twice. Well, maybe once a year. I think they do it. It's another thing. The training with this stuff is the brass will go in front of the cameras all day long and talk about how much they train the officers, and they don't. Not really. I think you get 1 day a year of taser training,
Really?
and it's mixed into it's stuffed in between. These PowerPoint presentations about bloodborne pathogens and things like that. It's like, it's like out of an 8-hour training day, you might do 2 hours of taser training. Then they hand you a piece of paper to sign off saying you got the training, and then it goes in your file, and that's it. I mean, so
what kind of training? I mean, what kind of ongoing training do police officers have, like throughout the year, just to stay, alert and aware, and on point. You know what I mean? I know they, firearms, you have to do like a firearms requalification, right? Every so often.
Yeah. That's I think that's just once a year. Also, no, I mean they don't. The training and in the aftermath of this video being released, I actually saw a cop on TV talking about how the reality of the training that they offer the cops, that they put the cops through, is nothing even close to adequate. The reality is you can't. Police departments just can't afford it. They can't afford to train people constantly. 1 or 2 days of taser training every month or so. That's why they send a department of 600 cops. They send the police. They send the cops. I think just once a year. Maybe it might be once every 6 months or something like that. But again, like I said, it's a couple of hours of PowerPoint presentation, and then they stand you in front of a dummy,
right?
And just practice. Okay, taser, and you shoot the dummy, and that's it. I mean, that's the end of the training.
I would think that a job like a police officer where there is life and death happening, people get killed, and in the line of duty, whether it's police officer or suspect, right? That you would spare no expense, I should say, in training, to make sure that officers are properly trained to do the best job to try and keep everyone safe, themselves, of course, and the suspect, even though that person did something illegal, you still want to keep them. This isn't like the Wild West, dead or alive. You know what I mean? Police officers are trained to de-escalate. Looks like the victims were the one de-escalating. Overly aggressive and doing too much extra. How can one even try to comply when you have multiple verbal commands and have hands all over you? Taser training is basically scheduled for basically 8 hours, and you're done in 2 hours. Maybe Jose knows something about that. Yeah, I mean, that, again, the multiple commands, and that would definitely confuse someone. And then you don't know if that person may, have maybe some kind of, mental health issue, maybe, things like that could kind of, set them off. Maybe he has PTSD. You don't know if they're a veteran, right? And all those commands and, are going, these guys with these bulletproof vests and stuff, that can kind of also, trigger.
Well, he mistakes. I mean, he did, but I'm not saying he should have been beaten for them.
No.
But
no, I'm saying the officers, maybe they should be aware of, maybe that the person that they're pulling out that car may be a veteran with PTSD, and then because look, I had this happen to me and my family, right? One time I was, it was me, my wife, my 2 kids. I was driving my wife to work. She worked in the Bronx at the time. We're going down the concourse, and I had tints on my car, right? I mean, it was a white Mercedes with tinted windows, right? And so I knew the cops were coming to pull me over. They wait there on the concourse, certain area by Fordham Row, and then it was 4 of them in one car, right? 4 Hispanic cops, and then they start driving along the service road while I'm in the middle of the concourse there, and they start looking at my car, and I look at them, and the way they're eyeing me, I knew I was being targeted, right? And I wasn't sure at first, and I said maybe it's the tints, I get it, and then they get in when they're able to, and then they hit the lights. They go around to the cars, they pull me over, I pull over, and then all 4 of them jump out screaming, lower the windows, put the windows down. They got their hands by their guns and stuff. Now I got 2 kids. My kids got scared. My daughter started crying because she thought I was going to jail, right? And I told her to relax, and I'm not going to jail, nothing will happen. Sometimes you get pulled over. But the way they jumped out, and just was all like, put the windows down, like you would thought I killed someone, I robbed a bank, I was I had a warrant for something violent, and I just didn't understand why they came out so aggressively. And I get it, the tint windows are dark, but I mean, not everyone.
Well,
has
I mean, it sounds like what you're describing sounds like a felony car stop.
I mean, I'm telling you, that's what it was like. I was like, did I rob a bank or something? It was
well,
crazy.
They must have had you pegged for something like that. You know what I mean? They weren't doing it because they were bored. I assume that they just let you go. I mean, they arrested.
I mean, they just told me that there was the tinted windows that was the issue, and that my windows were too dark, and then they were still rude. And my wife was like, I'm being dropped off at my job. I'm a school social worker. The guy that was on her side, right? It was 4 of them, was very nice. I said, guys, I got my kids here. You know what I'm saying? Relax.
Yeah.
Tone it down. And then he was like, oh well, you're lucky. I am being nice. I could give you a ticket for every window, a ticket per window. Is that true? You get a ticket per window? You just get one ticket for your tint. That's what he threatened me with. Then he gave me 1 ticket. I said, all right, thank you. And then, I didn't want to hype him up. I didn't want to hype him up anymore. But I mean, I've been stopped maybe 4 or 5 times for my tints, in all the years that I've had them, and every time it was a white cop, they let me go. They were very nice. Let me go. Here you go. Just, you got to, get them. But the Hispanic cops, boy, they ticket. The aggression. So, this, people have this whole white cops. It's not just, it's not that, I don't generalize that way, because in my experiences, again, those were all 4 Hispanic police officers. So I was supposed to be non-lethal, but more and more are dying. Yes, more and more are dying. And how do we stop this? Because every time this happens, the elected officials always say, this is an opportunity for reform, to make change. But they said that the last time and the time before that. So how do we change that?
Well, I don't. A lot of times they say things like that, and what they do is they go out and, to put a good face on their administration, they'll go out and they'll hire somebody who may not know what they're doing to be the police chief.
There you go. That's a good point.
In the case of here at Yonkers, it was for financial reasons that they picked John Mueller. But in places like maybe in Memphis, where they hired this chief, who in my opinion did not do a good job when she first took over. Maybe it's just because she was a black female and they wanted to check boxes and say, "Oh, look, look what we did." And I don't know. I mean, from what I understand about the way that she sort of run the department when she first got in, she wasn't doing the right things. Not for the year 2021, as I think when she came in, she was making mistakes, starting with the with the naming of the Scorpion unit, which to me is just ridiculous.
Hold them accountable, and that's the thing. Lately we've been, going on this whole politically correct, way about doing everything now, right? And so you have, people being appointed in these positions, not necessarily because they're the most qualified, but as you said, because they want to check the box, right? Mm-hmm. And then also now you got elected officials with this bail reform, right? And that adds to it, because as you get people now that are actually true criminals, coming out of jail easily, that heightens, the police officers now, because now you got more crime. People are more emboldened to commit crime when they know that they're going to come right out. So that just kind of creates this energy and this tension where now innocent people kind of are getting, these, things happen to them just because these cops are now like, crime is up, and it's up everywhere. It's up across the country. So, and I'm not making justifications. I'm just, adding some kind of little context here and there where I maybe just, for
much of my career as a young cop, if you ran from the police, or if the booking lieutenant saw a charge of resisting arrest on your booking sheet, you weren't going home that night. You weren't getting an appearance ticket. Forget about bail, nothing, none of this stuff. You were going to see the judge the next morning, and that was going to be your penalty for
evading police.
For leading the police on a wild chase through the streets, putting people's lives at risk.
I just didn't want to pull over. It was too dark, and I didn't know who you were.
well, that's tell to the judge, I mean, but so a lot of cops do kind of have the mindset that the DA's office doesn't take this kind of stuff seriously. There's no real punishment for fighting with the police, or running from the police, or leading the police on a high-speed chase. And when I got on as a cop, there was that you throw them a beating for it mentality among the salty old vets,
right? For
sure. Around 2011, Chucky took over in 2012, and one of the things that he did, and I'm not even entirely sure it was him. It may have been Edmund Harton in his last year or so as the police commissioner. They introduced the YPD 91, I believe, is the number of the form. It's basically a self-reported use of force form. Self-reported use of force, and you don't have to shoot somebody to fill it out, or even tase somebody. Just like holding somebody against the wall, trying to pull their arm behind their back, they handcuff them. That's enough for you to be filling out one of these forms. So if you look at my internal affairs record, I think over my 3 or 4 years as a cop during the time, I'm talking about right before I got promoted in 2014. So figure from 2011, 12, 13, and 14, I filled out a dozen or so of these. And it was all basically just stuff like that. Had to grab the guy and put him on the ground and hold his arms behind his back to handcuff him, or had to hold him against the wall, or
incident
so
reporter.
Right.
As
So
we call them.
when they came out with that form, I mean, a lot like decades or 100 years worth of that sort of mindset of make them pay that penalty for running or for fighting stopped almost immediately, because they took a page out of the New York City Police Department's book. What the NYPD figured out a long time ago is that when you want to deter behavior, attach paperwork to it, make a cop fill out,
hold them accountable.
Right. So when there started being a paper trail compiling all the times that you had to use force on somebody, cops don't want any part of it anymore. And it was a good thing, I mean, and then I think, Chucky, when he came in, he made changes to the form. He made it more detailed. You had to fill out, give more information. If you submitted it and it got all the way up to his office and he personally felt that you hadn't given enough information, you hadn't provided enough details, he would send it back down and ask for more. So that was one of the major things that he did to pump the brakes on that mindset. And
I think that was a good idea. I think, like you said, no one wants to have this paper trail following them. Hold officers accountable and qualified immunity, something that we spoke about. What do you think about qualified immunity? I mean, you were actually a victim of it, right? No way.
No, that was
it Ray Montero? I'm sorry, Ray Montero.
No, I think the way Nancy uses it in that context there, I think she has it confused with another thing called indemnification, because qualified immunity is different. Okay, as we were talking about it in the context of Montero versus City of Yonkers, qualified immunity is you've been deemed to be in violation of somebody's right or of some law. But because it had not been previously recognized that what you did was a violation of that law, you're going to get qualified immunity, and that people who behave the way you did in the future will be held liable. So in other words, again, we're Ray Montero's First Amendment rights. They did all this retaliatory stuff against him, okay? And he could have probably very easily sued for things like hostile work environment and stuff like that, but he didn't. He went straight to the federal court and sued for a violation of his First Amendment right. And then it became the issue was, well, was all this behavior, did it constitute a violation of his First Amendment right? What the judges ultimately decided upon was that it did, but because they had no reason to realize that they were violating his First Amendment right, because there had not been a previous precedent.
Right.
Okay, they're going to get shielded from liability.
And so, what is
with this doctrine called qualified immunity? I think what she's talking about is indemnification, meaning if a cop acts under the color of law in his official capacities and does something wrong, the city will indemnify him. He won't be held liable. The city will have to pay out.
Right.
So I think what she's trying to say is that there's no real deterrent.
Right. Or hold the individual officer accountable, right? Like in a civil court, now you were the officer that was that were involved. You can be sued in a civil court, and I think that's a good idea. I think, and if they're found guilty, let's say, these guys, right? Can they?
In a case like this, absolutely, yeah.
They can sue them, right? They can sue in a civil court afterward.
I don't know. Tennessee state laws, I don't know. If it were New York, I would. In New York, I don't think so. I think not. You can't sue them personally. They can be held criminally liable if they broke the law. But as far as seeking compensatory damages or punitive damages for their behavior, I think that would probably be on the city.
Yeah,
not them personally, right?
I'm finish up.
Yeah. They just did a poor job. If they had gotten him into handcuffs right then and there, which they absolutely should have, none of this would have ever happened.
Well, they get the.
Slim build.
I just want to skip to this.
Last song.
They let him go. They kind of put his description through the to the officers.
What's that?
These are the ones that are there. These guys got pepper sprayed. These two officers here were pepper sprayed. One of them really bad. You'll see here. And the gentleman that I showed, the white officer there, he's here also. They leave him with the car, the Tyree Nichols car.
Yeah, well, I've seen that. I can't even tell you how many times where the OC, the pepper spray, if you will, one cop uses it and gets it not only into the suspect's eyes, but 6 cops have to go to the hospital and get their eyes cleaned out too, because it's another thing that I just don't like about it. And a lot of times it didn't even work.
Right.
I mean, I can remember one situation where it worked, where a canine cop used it to spray a woman who was she was high on some water, and she was holding a very large knife to her own throat. Now, I'm not sure it was even the right move, but he did. He sprayed her. He sprayed her a lot, and she dropped the knife and started crying, and he saved her life. I think he got a life-saving award for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she lived. That's good.
Frank.
Right.
This is my car. Grab my water. All right, hang on. Where's your water? Can't see shit. Okay, I got you.
I mean, look how out of breath they are. I mean, they're not much of a street crime unit, if you ask me.
Right. Negative 2938. Where am I?
Out of shape. Out of shape. Overly aggressive.
All
Poor
of them.
tactics. Right.
That's one thing I noticed, the heavy breathing.
Left eye? Yeah. Left eye again? Yeah.
Oh.
I can't see.
I mean, he looks like he needs an ambulance.
He's fighting me. Negative, we just saw him running down Ross. Let me get right eye. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it could be another couple of minutes of this guy just.
No, I want to. He's gonna say something here. The guy, I want to let him hear that. He's gonna say here in a few minutes. Let me see.
Right.
He says, I want to hear. He would hear that. I hope they stomp his ass.
That way.
He's out. And that looks fun though. Riding those Chargers or whatever they are, the lights.
I gotta
Mark.
find my glasses and get this damn taser downloaded.
I
would
mean,
love
police work can definitely be exciting.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie and say it isn't. It can be, but that doesn't give you a license to go
No.
beating the snot out of people and say, "Oh well, I was excited." It doesn't work that way.
My wife always says it's probably best you weren't a cop. I used to want to be a cop. Well, I wanted to show Paul where he says, I hope they stomp his ass, right? But I don't know where it's at. I don't want to keep going to it. But I do want to play where they catch up with them here and kind of go over that. This is from a street camera.
In this ring. Come on. Together. On the other side. Look.
Now he's in handcuffs at this point.
Yeah.
Even when I got on in 2007, and you had a lot of these salty old vets beating the snot out of people, and even they understood that Once the handcuffs were on, that was it. That was the end of it. There was nothing
He on
else.
something. He on something.
I just can't understand anything like this.
I mean, he's there. He's laying on. You know, they don't rush to get him any medical attention, right? I mean, he's in.
I mean, that's one of many problems with these videos. Where's the supervisor? Where's the supervisor? I mean, was there a sergeant anywhere on this scene? This was going on for
Eventually,
quite
I think
a bit of
someone
time.
comes. I believe there is a supervisor that comes on the scene, but at that point, I mean, I think medics and everyone are already there also. But he looked like he knew something was going to go bad. And now this guy was limping. I noticed this guy limping. I don't know if he was trying to act like it or he really.
2938. Does the fire department need to come down to you, or are you bringing him back down here?
Bring him down here. Bring him down here.
Check the hand right now.
I would also like to see the coroner's report. I would like to see exactly what they ruled the cause of death to be.
So this is body cam now from one of the officers.
I see him. Man, he turned around. He hit him with a taser. He snatched them motherfuckers out, took our run. Hell yeah. Yeah, I'm straight.
All those big dudes, and they're making it seem like he gave him such a hard time.
Yeah, you're right. Those are some big dudes, man.
Come on, y'all want him to bring him down there? Man, I'm not bringing dude. Man, hell.
You know, and they did all this with their body cameras on, and you know, I don't.
Yeah.
They pretty clearly expected to get away with it, and that's the problem. It's
Right.
the
I was going to
mindset.
say that. Like you said, I
Right.
mean, they obviously have done this before, and they expected to get away with it. I mean, there's no, you know, sense of urgency to get him any medical attention. And they probably even expected him to live. They didn't think he was going to die. You know, we've done this
guaranteed.
before.
And that's going to be a problem getting a murder conviction. I don't think they're going to get a murder conviction. They'll probably get a manslaughter conviction.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't think they were trying to kill the guy, but so what do you think? I mean, should they get a murder conviction, a murder charge as opposed to manslaughter?
Well, I looked at the second-degree murder statute for Tennessee, and there were a couple of other subdivisions, but the main one, the one that they're going with here, was the knowing, and it's worded different than it is in New York, because in New York it's the intentional taking of another person's life. Down there, it's the knowing killing of another person, which is actually a little bit lower of a bar. To do something knowingly happens more often than to doing it intentionally. You know, so in New York, to be convicted of murder, the prosecutor has to prove that you intended for the person to die. You wanted them to die. You did what you did, and they died. That's murder. Okay. Now down there, knowingly is the way I read it. It was basically you're knowing that what you're doing is reasonably certain to cause the person's death. So maybe it's not quite you're intending to kill him, but you know that what you're doing is very, very, very likely to end in him dying. So that's why they may get a conviction down there. But I don't even think they expected him to die. I think they just meant to beat him,
right,
and throw him a beating and teach him a lesson or whatever nonsense was going through their heads.
I mean, you got to exercise common sense also. I mean, you know, and when it comes to those, you know, that verbiage, right? And you know, and did they knowing or intentionally, right?
Right.
I mean, if you have to common sense, if you beat a guy, you know, the way they were, there's a big possibility that he can die. So, you know, I mean, you may not intentionally want to kill him, but your actions were that, you know, killed him, right? And
they may very well get murder convictions, and you know, then I mean, that'll be just fine if they did, because
they'll be made examples out of.
I just bro. My leg, bro. My knee.
So I think at this point there is a supervisor.
Hey, he took our running soon as I seen him wiping it.
I think it's this guy here.
Which guy is that?
Man, they need to give me some saline.
He has short sleeves, I believe.
Oh yeah, you just rewind a little bit. He was just right there.
He's like hip heel tape. He jumped up, shit, shit.
Right here, yeah.
Man, they need to give me some.
Yeah, there he is.
Oh yeah, I think he.
That maybe I didn't see any stripes.
Everybody got you. I spray, he spray, hip heel tase, he jumped up, shit, shit. He was going for the no, not dope.
Yeah, I mean, look, if anything, if the ambulance is far out, if the ambulance, you get an ETA, you ask the ambulance, what's your estimated time of arrival? If they say something that's unacceptable, you can put the guy in the back of the police car and bring him to the hospital.
Right. Because they were just kind of hanging out there, right? And and they're not really even like taking their body cams, like you said, like they don't even seem to be concerned with anything, hiding anything from the body cameras. Although at one point they did take it off and put it on the hood of the car, the trunk of the car.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just maybe they're just that sloppy.
As long as I'd been in a minute, man. Man, listen. I ain't even look.
You can tell by how nonchalant they all are that this is routine for them. This is just business as usual.
They just look like some friends that got into a bar fight and now they're recanting the story.
Yeah, kind of.
And I'm gonna have maybe my opinion on why this is so unprofessional looking.
It's more than dope.
I mean, I don't know if you showed it, but there were parts where they were kicking him in the head and.
No, I didn't show that. I don't know if this video here has that. Let me look for that. But I'll look for that while I talk about this. The reason why, I think that, because again, you see those guys and he's like, yo, boom, bah, yeah, he was ducking, he's like you're recanting a story of a fight that you got into with your friends the other weekend, right? And they're very unprofessional. They don't seem to be concerned with the body cams, try to hide anything, or maybe, not say certain things, or even they're not looking to really gather their story together, get it together so they each, say the same thing. And maybe it's because the fact that Memphis, Tennessee is so poor. It's a very poor, right? It's a very poor city. The city itself there is lacking in finances. The police officers don't get paid a lot. And in fact, it's kind of like Miami in the 80s. I don't know if you heard about that, like with the cocaine cowboys, when, they had so much, these cartels and these cocaine gangs shooting it up with machine gun. They needed more cops. Cops weren't being paid that much, So they were hiring people even who had convictions and even maybe had tested positive for drugs, right? But they just like, okay, stop that. You don't do it no more. And they hired them. So these guys then started, taking money and stuff, right? Because they already had the history of doing things like that. But they needed bodies. And Memphis, Tennessee needs bodies. They need police. The violence, the shootings, the crime out there is extremely high. There are, it's a Midwestern country town, but it has a big city also feel, and there's just a lot of violence there. And they don't, they're not drawing cops. Not Yonkers. Yonkers, you're making $140, $150, $200,000 a year. These guys are making $40,000, and then there's a lot of shootings going on there. People have guns out there, right? So maybe they're just filling bodies, not properly training these guys. These guys just, and they even raised the age limit on the, when you could be an officer just to get people in. So maybe could be.
Lowered it?
They raised the age, so so they can get more people, right? So so they have a bigger, broader group of individuals to select from.
Yeah, I mean, decades ago, generations ago, they would just basically hand a kid coming out of the academy a gun and a badge and put him out on the street. Different now. It's you have field training officers coming out of the academy. You're expected to perform at a very high level, much higher standards, much more scrutiny. What all of that adds up to is that you need high quality individuals to take this job. Basic market economics, if you want high quality individuals, is you're going to have, if you want people who are college educated and well behaved and don't have records, well, you're going to have those kind of people in society have a lot of options. So if you want to attract them to your profession, you have to offer a decent salary. So it's
but I mean, in Yonkers, and I've heard stories.
People making good money. Sure,
I've called. Well, I'm talking about people who have, and I'm not saying all the officers, I'm just saying, but there are people that have been looked over who have, are ex-military, were, high ranking in the military, strong, whatever, able, did well in the test, did one physical, but because of nepotism, family and friend stuff, they've got passed up over. And that could happen there also. And also, but, here in Yonkers, when we say Yonkers is the best, greatest police department in the world, right? And they are great, and they have a lot more than the Memphis police departments there, right? It's kind of like Mount Vernon almost, how the police department there, especially at one point, was really rinky-dink. Cars were falling apart, right? So maybe they don't have the money and the resources for field training, officers and all that stuff, like you say, and that's why you have this issue here.
Well, I mean, look, they have no department has to get so desperate that they go out hiring dirtbags. You know what I mean? So these guys, I don't know what their problem was. I don't know if they were like that, if they were people like that before they got hired, or if it's just a department cultural thing, which is very, very possible because, like I said, that pace is set by the ivory tower. That pace is set by the highest ranking people in the department, and just the naming of the unit alone tells me that they were on board with that kind of a mindset.
Right.
It's indicative of that. It really is. It might seem what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, I mean, who knows what kind of pressure that elected officials also may put on them. Hey, stop the crime. We gotta, crime is out of hand here. We gotta.
Oh yeah. I was reading that in the New York Times. In the New York Times, it was, crime has been up like crazy down there. Homicides have been up. So they were told to get out there and do the job. But even that, it's okay to be, to have a policy of, zero tolerance for this stuff and to get out there and to do the work and to find the guns. But it doesn't translate into, kicking a guy while he's down in handcuffs or tasing him or emptying a can of mace directly into his eyeballs, punching him repeatedly while he's in handcuffs. It doesn't add up to that. So there's a big difference between good aggressive police work and over the line unacceptable brutality. There is a clear distinction.
Right. And I'm going to show some of that here. I got a video here.
Shut the fuck up. Let me wipe your hey.
Give me your hand. Give me your hand. Give me your hand.
You might get sprayed again. Hey. Hey, Mike. Get the hey, bro. Watch out.
Watch out.
Yeah. No, see, pause it for a second. So that's what we call passive resistance. They're telling him to put his hands behind his back and he's not doing it. So instead of just reaching down and, putting him in a simple, Kimura type of an arm bar and just pulling his arms behind his back,
right,
and handcuffing him, which I've done to many, many people, they decide that they're just going to beat the shit out of him, which is, it's an antiquated mindset. You can't do that. It was never okay, but there was a point, well, for a lot of departments, for most of their history, it was just sort of accepted.
Right. And
it's not anymore. It hasn't been for a long time, which is why I don't understand why this department is so far behind, in their thinking.
Right.
It was almost as like they didn't want it. To me, it seemed like almost as if they didn't want it to end. Like they were having fun.
That's what I'm saying. Like it just seems so over the top. And I even said that and I've read news articles that said the same thing. This was like worse than Rodney King, right? And Rodney King, is bad. You see the cops with the nightsticks just beat him. He's on the floor. He's trying to get up. But I mean, they were just stomping him, punching him, tasing him. He got everything, and then he ended up actually dying. Rodney King lived. He got a lawsuit, but this guy didn't have that ending. He died. But it just looked like it kept, like they were just going on and on and on. Like they didn't want to arrest him. They just wanted to beat him. That was their goal. It's just to give him a beat.
Hold him still. You got 5 guys there. Hold him still and pull his arms behind his back and put him in handcuffs. That's it. That's the end of it. There's no excuse for not doing it that way. You outnumber him 5-1. It might take you a few extra seconds if he's pinning his arms to his chest or not wanting to stay still. But that many cops can hold him still and get his arms behind his back. There's no excuse for what they did. None.
Especially after George Floyd. I mean, you would think they would have known better.
Hey.
Give me your hands. Give me.
Okay. All right.
Give me your fucking hands. Give me your hands.
All right. Okay. All right. Hey, man, give me your hands, bro.
And you see that guy right there? That guy just came in, and from a different angle, they show from the back, he comes in and just like does a punt. He punts his head.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Yeah.
crazy. That could instantly
Yeah.
kill him. You know?
Yeah.
What's up? Spray ass again. Hey, give me your hands, bro. What's up?
Frank. Give me your hands, bro.
Oh, shit. Oh, shit.
I mean, these guys are definitely clowns. I mean, they're definitely clowns. They keep spraying each other.
Yeah, they're not professionals. They're not
No,
they're not good at what they do. It's that
I mean,
simple.
yeah, even the guys that would like do the beatings and stuff, right? That would beat, you know, back in the days, as you said. I mean, at least they did it in a way where, you know, it seemed like it was organized in some way. Like they kind of had it all, you know.
They did it hard and fast, and then the cuffs went on, and that was the end of it. That was you know, generally the way it always went down.
That's crazy. I mean, I don't know. Is there anything else you want to say on that? I mean, that's just crazy, man.
No, I think we covered.
Yeah,
we covered you know, most of the important points, and you know,
that's crazy.
That's a top-down problem. That kind of stuff. It's a top-down problem.
Right.
Chucky Gardner knew how to prevent stuff like that. You know,
Right.
Chief running the show down there does not. And she'll probably keep her job. That's the unfortunate part. You know, in my opinion, when something like this happens, everybody in that person's chain of command all the way up to the top should be replaced.
Well, they definitely fired the EMT guys got fired, and who, you know, any medical people that responded there were fired as well. So there are definitely some people that were fired that were not directly involved in beating this guy, but just didn't do anything. They just looked at him, you know. And I'm like, I just can't believe it. Like, I would have said something. If I was a cop, I would have, you know, I'd probably be in your shoes, man, because I would have spoke out on some things, and they would have sent me to the shrink and stuff as well, because I couldn't sit there and watch guys do that.
Yeah. That's why I was asking Legislator Johnson last night. You know, because that's another thing they've been talking about on the networks lately. You know, I mean, well, who had seen stuff like this before and wanted to speak out but didn't,
Right.
because of fear of retaliation. Because
Right.
you know, police culture, I think, just across this country and maybe even across the entire globe, very, very retaliatory, you know, when it comes to things like that. Actually, even in that document, that 43-page document we were reading pertaining to Montero versus City of Yonkers, they cited a case where a cop had been retaliated against by his own brass for reporting what he thought was excessive force in one incident. You know, and he refused to recant it, so they punished him administratively.
Guarantee these guys will get 25-year minimum. They show no remorse for what they did. We'll see how it goes, but you know, there's definitely going to be a lot of you know, pissed off people if they're not, you know, if justice is not served. Then
I think they will be. I think
there will be. Yeah, I don't think we want to.
I don't know if they'll get murder. What may happen is, in some cases, the judge will tell the jury flat out to review the other charges, lesser charges, and consider convicting on those instead. You know, and that happens sometimes.
Well, you know, I want to send my condolences to the family. You know, prayers for the family and stuff. And will they come up with some reform? Will it change, or will we see it again? I'm gonna, if I have to bet, if I'm a gambling guy, which I'm not, I'm gonna bet that it's gonna happen again. And I hate to say that, but it's just, you know, it's just the pattern, right? It's just a pattern. Well, you wanted to real quick, and you mentioned Montero. What's that thing you wanted to mention in regards to the lawsuit, Montero? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think my headset just died.
Oh,
that's okay.
Did you email something to me?
Can you hear me? That's
I can hear you. I can hear you. Yeah.
Let me get out my other set of headphones.
By the way, did anyone?
I remember that last we were talking about Montero versus City of Yonkers. There was a phrase that I was looking for in that 43-page document, and I found it. So I figured I would direct you to it so we could just take a look at it real quick. We're not going to spend much time on it. But with the PBA meeting coming up on the monthly PBA meeting coming up on Monday, which I think is the 6th, right?
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure. Probably today's the 3rd, 4th, 5th. Yep, 6th.
There's been some. Hold on a second.
You didn't email it to me, right? You said no. I'm sorry. I'm looking at my
my backups here.
My security camera alerts. I was going to mention something I totally forgot.
So there's been speculation that Keith might be inclined to talk about the conversations that went on during the last few podcasts.
So you're saying
January.
that he may speak about the last few podcasts at this PBA meeting?
Yeah, at this upcoming PBA meeting. Now, having reviewed those two podcasts where he was commenting away, I think I figured out what he was trying to do, and it was a little foreign to me because I had never heard either him or John Mueller or Brian Moran or anybody ever go around denying that any of the stuff with Montero had ever taken place. On the contrary, Keith is usually the kind of guy who wears something like that as a badge of honor. This is the kind of guy I am. This is what'll happen if you mess with me and my buddies and that sort of a thing. Sort of the same mindset that you could hear Louis Venturino exposing on that voicemail, not knowing that it was going to end up on the internet one day.
Right.
That sort of thuggish mindset, So I figured out, looking at his comments, what he was trying to do was he was trying to exploit the fact that at no point did any judge explicitly say, "We know you did this. We know you behaved this way." It was kind of unnecessary since they never contested it from the beginning. They never denied their behavior. So there was never. Right.
Really quick, I just want to just because we switch gears a little bit here.
Yeah. Right.
I want to just kind of give a little context to what you're referring to.
Right.
We spoke about we had a podcast a few weeks ago, and we were discussing the Ray Montero. Ray Montero is a former Yonkers police officer who sued the city of Yonkers, the PBA, and stuff like that. And we spoke about that. And Keith Olson, the Yonkers PBA president, actually joined us and started to comment there. He gave his side of things, and and I read them out, because I like to give everybody their chance. And so you basically were saying that he was trying to play with the words a bit, right, and try to kind of be misleading in a way, because he was saying that the case was dismissed. There was nothing found there that they did anything wrong, right? And that's it.
So
there's nothing.
My summarization of the case is this: when they went in, Ray accused them of all of this retaliatory behavior, consisting primarily of fraudulent investigations. That being the key phrase: fraudulent investigations. Something that cops are constantly being accused of, but usually it's cops at the lower ranks who are being accused of it. Think, Mark Furman in the OJ trial, right? Planting the glove and things like that. But fraudulent investigations are usually more pernicious because it's harder to prove that the motivation for it was entirely retaliatory, especially when you have experts like John Mueller, who are very practiced at it.
Right.
They know how to cross the T's and dot the I's. So Ray went into the courtroom and accused them of all of these things. And from the very beginning, they were trying to worm out on technicalities. Now, if you want to pull it up, as a matter of fact, we'll look at the phrase that I was trying to pinpoint the last time we were talking about this. It's on page 5 of that 43-page document.
You sent it, right? I don't.
Oh, you want me to send it to you again?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Go to Google.
Oh, okay. Well, go ahead, keep talking while I bring it up here.
So when they went in, they said, this behavior was not a First Amendment violation. This was their defense. This was not a First Amendment violation because Ray wasn't speaking as a private citizen. Now, that's what you call trying to worm out on a technicality. If you were going to deny that you had ever even engaged in any of the behavior that he was accusing you of, you would do that right from the beginning, I would tend to think. But that's not what they did, okay? Ultimately, that defense fell flat, and they moved to, okay, well, whatever. We're entitled to qualified immunity, essentially saying that we didn't know that this was a First Amendment violation. The judges ultimately agreed. Now, for my purposes, the direction that I was intending to go with this story was that if you're John Mueller and you're the police lieutenant who was accused by Ray Montero of having quarterbacked all of these fraudulent investigations, okay, you're dragged into a federal court and accused of it in a federal court. Now, if I'm Mike Spano and I have John Mueller's name on a short list of people who want to move up into the higher ranks of the department, administration, You want to be a police chief. You want to be the police commissioner one day. If I have your name, John Mueller, on a list, okay, and then you're John Mueller and you're getting dragged into court by Ray Montero being accused of these things. If you want to stay on my list, okay, I'm the mayor. If you want to stay on my list, you have to do two things. The first thing you have to do is you have to go in and you have to say, Your Honor, I'm not guilty of a First Amendment violation because I didn't do any of this stuff that this guy is accusing me of. Okay? You have to deny it outright. The second thing you have to do is you have to get the case thrown out. You have to get the judge to say, yeah, Ray Montero didn't meet his his burden of proof, and I'm throwing the case out. That's it. If you walk into the courtroom and you say, well, it wasn't a First Amendment violation because he wasn't speaking as a private citizen. If I'm the mayor, I say, what? Excuse me? He's accusing you of launching fraudulent. You're a police administrator. You're middle management. He's accusing you of launching fraudulent investigations, and you're going to go into the courtroom with that defense. Well, to me, that sounds like you're guilty. And it's like that scene from Kill Bill. Oh, there's your name. Oh, there used to be your name. Puts a line right through it. If I'm the mayor and you go into the courtroom with a defense like that, you're never going to get promoted again.
Right.
You probably won't even make captain.
Of course, you have to lie. You have to.
Well,
lie.
I mean, if you want to stay on that list, you have to go in and deny it, and then get the judge to agree with you that it never happened. You can't try to worm out on technicalities. I think Keith realizing this, and a lot of people have speculated after watching those podcasts that John must have something in store for Keith over at the MTA when Keith retires, because I actually heard that this might be his last PBA meeting. He's retiring soon, apparently.
Yeah,
and
that's why he commented.
He's trying to defend himself because
because he doesn't care. He's gonna be retiring. Otherwise, he wouldn't comment.
Well, that too, but it could also be people. I was told that the word about these podcasts is out in the Westchester Police Chiefs Association. So there are higher ups in other departments around the county watching them.
Oh, really?
Basically laughing at John Mueller because a lot of them know him, and they know what a booby is. A boob at best. But he is the MTA police commissioner now, and it would be fitting of the pattern if Keith retired and John got him a job of in some capacity over at the MTA or anywhere else. John using his steam, his power as the MTA police commissioner to pull the string for Keith Olsen and get him a job on top of his what I'm sure is going to be a $130,000, $140,000 pension.
I was going to say that. You don't think that he's just going to retire, go fishing, drink some beers, and say, screw it, this is my life now, on a boat somewhere, just,
No, I think he's going to get another job and drink some beers. He's going to drink beers. There's no doubt about that.
I go up to the lake house and just live my life there.
Well, that's what I would do too. And maybe that is what he's going to do. It's just speculation. But people are trying to figure out why he's coming on and defending himself so feverishly when it's common knowledge within the department that all of this stuff happened. But
I mean, it's a public image, public perception,
right.
I mean, it's not a fact for the public. It's a fact for maybe those who were there, who saw it, but it's not a fact for the public. And, that still is something that people care about, what public thinks about them, especially they're known, as much as Keith Olsen's known. But I don't know Keith Olsen personally. I don't get and I'm good with feeling and people's vibes and energy. I don't get a negative vibe, bad person vibe from Keith. I don't know why. When I get listen, man, I'm just living my life. I see opportunities, I take them, and that's it, man. I'm not looking to hurt people, right? That's not my goal. But I do what I do. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a Mueller where I'm gonna, like as you mentioned him, so like that. Hey, just listen. This is the way things are in Yonkers, and I just do what I do. And
I don't have Keith pegged as a sadist. He's not evil like Mueller is, but Keith is unscrupulous and underhanded. Don't make any mistake about it.
Well, I think you have to be in that role, right? If you want to, get to that point. And this is what I say with like politics and things like that. That people need to understand that these individuals have have agendas. There's many times, and I'm not speaking about Keith. I'm saying in general. That many times they're self-serving, right? And they're ruthless, vicious, cutthroat, and that's how they get to to the top in these positions, right? They're not, social workers who care and will give the shirt off their backs. Otherwise, they'll never get to the top.
It's
right?
it's Game of Thrones.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So then that kind of throws it off because you're like, well, you're supposed to be there to help people. It's not supposed to be Game of Thrones, but that's what it is.
But we can hold the mayor to a different standard since he's the one that we send votes to. I mean, we can say, well, why do you do business with these people to the degree that you do? You have to do some business with him because he's the union president. You don't have to sell him his pick of police commissioner. I mean, that's a little.
Well, it serves their benefit, right? So, I mean, they're not doing it for Keith. They could care less really about Keith. They only care for Keith as much as they can get, him, to benefit them, right? I would imagine. I mean, it's not like they're.
Yeah, well, union cash going up to Empire State,
right?
Empire strategic planning is a benefit, but is that acceptable? I mean, it's not supposed to be.
Oh, no, but I mean, they get something for it according to Keith, right?
So let's go to page 5.
Is this it right here, right? Page 5. Yeah. So let's go and talk about that real quick because we're pushing at 1:15.
That's way at the end. Page 42.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you the closest the judges ever came to actually explicitly saying, we know that all of this happened. You're on page 2. Scroll down a little bit. That's 3.
What page is it?
Right there. Background. Okay, as required in our review of a dismissal under Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 12b-6, we accept all factual allegations as true and draw all reasonable inferences in favor of the plaintiff. Okay, let me read it again. We accept all factual allegations as true and draw all reasonable inferences in favor of the plaintiff. So all of the factual allegations, all of the allegations of things that Ray is saying actually happened, not his opinions, they're accepting as true. Okay, that's the language that you need to look to in this document to understand that the court did take the position that all of this did happen, and they were shielding Mueller and Moran from liability. In other words, from having to pay the piper for it based on this doctrine of qualified immunity. Okay. With Keith submitted a letter saying, hey, even if I was a state actor, I'm just going to get off on qualified immunity too. At which point Montero said, yeah, Judge, he's right. If he was a state actor, he's just going to get off on qualified immunity too. So I'll agree to the dismissal. So they all basically got qualified immunity.
Right.
Mueller and Moran got it explicitly. Keith kind of got it implicitly. And for my purposes, that was never really important. But so I think what he's going to do is if he goes to the meeting or at some point, any time here, going forward, I think what Keith is intent to do, judging from his comments that he was making during the previous 2 podcasts, is he wants to try to convince people that because the judges never explicitly came out and said, we know you guys did this. We're letting you off on the technicality, but we know you guys are dirtbags and you did all this retaliatory stuff, these fraudulent investigations. Okay, because the judges never went nuts in that mode, he wants to try to convince people, well, hey, we went in and we tried to get off on the technicality of, he wasn't speaking he was not speaking as a private citizen. When that fell flat, we moved to a second defense. We're entitled to qualified immunity. But even though that succeeded, if it hadn't, then suddenly there was going to be this third phase of the hearing where we suddenly started denying outright all of the accusations against us. You know what, Keith? If that's what you want to try to tell people, good luck, pal.
Well, I mean,
good luck, because
I think
you're just going to insult people's intelligence.
Yeah, I think also, I mean, I've learned it from marketing. I mean, it's the whole different. It's not even about that. When you're trying to engage people and get them to believe something.
It's not about the truth. It's about how well you can sell your story, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I wish them luck.
All the way how you engage people and and get them to connect with it. And so what he's saying, I think Keith Olsen, in a way, he's you're both right. That's the thing. It's like you're both right. That's why you can't. I think you're looking for the nail in the coffin in here, and you're not going to find it, right? Or the smoking gun, whatever you want to say it. Because you're both
I'm talking
right.
about the politics of the situation, okay? The bottom
You're
line
both
is
right.
as far as Mueller, that was my horse in this race. How it ended for Mueller, and it did not end well. And it's gonna come up when I drag his ass into court. This is gonna come up, and it's gonna be a problem for him. I would love to see how he's gonna try to worm out of it a second time.
Well, I think what Keith maybe also was saying was that, like you said, the judge said, yes, that all factual allegations as true, right? But because of the qualified immunity, that it was essentially dismissed, right?
It was dismissed, basically saying you're not liable for the behavior, but the behavior took place, and for my purposes, that's what counts. Right.
Yeah.
So,
well, for you,
but for my purposes, right?
But legal purposes, and
and for political purposes, how do we judge Mike Spano for picking John Mueller as the police commissioner in light of this case?
Right.
That's a real problem. It's supposed to be.
So you want to point out the character of the individuals, right? Forget what the judge decided, but it shows the judge is agreeing that they did these things, so that shows their character. The judge is agreeing
you just said you don't have to pay the piper for them. You don't have to pay up.
Right.
You're not going to be held liable for damages, but you still did it. Okay, and to me, if you did it, that's enough to get your name, a line drawn through your name for police commissioner.
And Mike Spano will still, knowing this, went forward anyway.
Because the DPW commissioner maybe can launch fraudulent investigations. Okay, the parks commissioner maybe can launch fraudulent. Hell, maybe even the fire commissioner can launch fraudulent investigations. The police commissioner can't.
Right.
Okay, more so than any other post in your cabinet, as a mayor or a governor or the president or whatever. Okay, your top law enforcement official has to be somebody of unimpeachable character. John Mueller's character, as a matter of record, is highly impeachable. Has been for a long time. He didn't care, and as a result of it, I'm in the mess that I'm in. For very little wrongdoing on my own part.
And that's so essentially Mike Spano, right? In choosing individuals that have poor characters, right? You're now find yourself in the situation that you're in, and this is just one example, right? And I think one of the ways you get your justice, and I'm sure you're going to be getting it through the courts, is also to encourage people to vote them out because of this,
right.
What's going on. And it's not the first time Mike Spano's done this. I mean, you look at other individuals, like, for example, Sam Borelli at the building department. The guy was suspended for 2 weeks without pay for steering contracts to his own company, quote unquote, well, it's his son's company, but it really was his company, right, as the DPW deputy commissioner, right? So, but he was hired at the building department because he's supposed to be this great manager. No, he's not. He's not even managing. And then his excuse was that, I didn't know it was this, that, and that. Well, even if it was innocent mistake, you're still not a good manager, right? But yet Mike Spano hired him. He had Mike Breen reduce the qualifications for the building department commissioner just to have Sam Borelli get the job. So again, that's just another example.
And
right?
as a Democrat, Mike Spano as a Democrat, the Democratic base is Black and Hispanic people. Okay, now maybe Black and Hispanic people don't care all that much if you're pulling stunts like that with the building department. They do care if you're doing it with the police department, because like we've been saying, basically,
right.
This entire podcast, the mindset of a police department starts at the top. Okay,
right.
And when the police commissioner himself is a man who holds a policy of, you better adhere to this little mafia-like subculture and not talk about things and not make certain kinds of complaints, or you're going to be retaliated against. That's a real problem. Okay,
right.
That's a guy who's starting to undo all of the work that Chucky Gardner did. Now, after the situation with me, they got involved more hands-on with him, started paying attention to more of the things that he was doing, and then they got rid of him after 2.5 years. They pushed him off on somebody else, which was a good move.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, they knew that they were going to
be held accountable at the ballot box.
They knew that they were going to be here, right, in 2023, where they were going to be wanting this fourth term. So they couldn't have someone like John Mueller for too long, screwing things up for them. So they had to get rid of him soon, sooner than later, right? And so, again, that's an example of poor leadership, poor decision making, right, on behalf of our leaders at the very top. And like you said, the impact on Black and Hispanics specifically, who have historically had, and especially blacks who have historically had, these incidents with the police, and on our men being shot and women being shot and killed by police, right? If you have a mayor that's willing to put a commissioner like John Mueller, the man that you described, to head the police department, you can almost expect some incidents like this to possibly happen. So it's a good thing that he wasn't there too much longer, right? Because who knows, we could have had our own George Floyd or our own, Tyree Nichols here in Yonkers, because we don't have the right leadership in our police department.
I highly doubt it. I mean, that the mindset has been thoroughly adjusted for a long time now,
and I'm not saying anything about the young or the new or even the police officers out there now. I'm saying that, but over time, if you allow this mindset, it could unravel everything that Chucky Gardner did. So John Mueller, who I agree with, is horrible now. Did he get the MTA job? Yes, he did. This fired cop keeps talking about how bad Mueller was, and I agree. But why was he hired for the MTA job when the Connecticut governor and New York State governor have to agree on to be hired? Can you explain that to me? I'm curious.
Well, listen, I wasn't there for the discussions, but I can only imagine that the Spanos had something significant to do with it. And I think it's also as simple as Kathy Hochul being a brand new governor. And I don't know anything about the Connecticut governor, but they just didn't do their due diligence on the guy.
Here's
simple.
Here's my thoughts on that. Actually, there was one evening I was in Zupa's, right? This was when I was hanging out with the crew. I was at Zupa there. I was with Vinny Spano and some other individuals. I want to say them. The mayor came, right? And we stayed late. There was an event there, but there's after most people leave, a few people stay, hang out, and then that's when the real stuff goes down. That's why I would stay. They drinking, and he comes in and he sits with us, and he looks very tired, right? And he's says, Vinny says to me, yeah, he was out with the governor tonight, Hochul. He was with Kathy Hochul before she obviously was elected, right? And they were having a meeting, and they were having these meetings with a bunch of elected officials throughout the state of New York with Kathy Hochul. So who knows, and I started thinking maybe there were these politics, going on. Hey, Kathy, I'll make sure that I'll get Yonkers to vote for you, right, in the coming election. This is what we want. Want you to give me the approval for John Mueller, right? That could have been something. I always thought about that night when he came. He talked about it. Vinny was like, hey, how was your meeting with the governor and stuff? Who knows what they discussed.
I mean, when she, when a new governor comes in, I imagine she wants to at least converse with the heads of the biggest cities in the state.
Yeah.
And the Spanos essentially being state politicians. I'm sure she knew them beforehand anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's a matter of political wheeling and dealing. That's how he got in. There's no doubt about it. I mean, somebody was hoodwinked, and in a way, it's a smart move because whereas all of this time I've been up really only against the mayor's office trying to cover it up. Now Kathy Hochul has an interest in seeing John Mueller's garbage covered up. So I may end up finding myself going against the governor's office when I try to go to court.
It's like that kid Akeem Jamal, all right, or Jamal Akeem, whatever his name is. He was, the guy that got into DUI. He was sent up to the governor's office, but then I think she didn't want nothing to do with him. She sent him over to Governor's Island, where the newspaper, the local paper there, questioned who was this guy? Why was he coming all the way down here to Governor's Island? And then he had this position within the communications, whatever. He wasn't really qualified, and then they found this DUI and all that stuff. And so it's like the mayor, he doesn't want to just throw them under the bus and completely get rid of them, but he wants to get rid of them in a nice way, right here. Get out of here, but you'll have a nice job.
He wants to get rid of them in a way where they feel that
they got hooked up.
Yeah, that they where they have no resentment towards him.
Right, exactly.
Perfect way. Well, how do we get rid of this guy in a way that he goes along with? Oh well, let's see if we can get Hochul to put him in charge of a police department double the size of Yonkers.
Right.
Right.
And especially people that can give may have information that can really
you feed him. In his mind is a stepping stone to being.
How do you convince the Connecticut governor to go along with it? Maybe, an envelope with some cash stuffed in it. You know,
No, I mean, you can go and just convince. If he doesn't know anything about Mueller, you can go and convince that Mueller is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
right?
You know what I mean? I mean, look at all the heavyweights, the political heavyweights that came out and threw their weight behind him going to MTA. Stuart Cousins.
Wow.
Yeah, she came out and said a couple of kind words about him.
And I'm sure if Kathy
And I'm
Hochul,
sure she doesn't know anything about him either.
yeah, I'm sure if Kathy Hochul, joined Mike Spano in a meeting with the governor of Connecticut, they went for lunch or something one day. I'm sure Kathy's saying, yeah, we think it's a good idea. And so, I mean, New York State, Connecticut's Connecticut, but New York is New York, right? And the governor of New York, I would think, has more kind of, influence than the governor of Connecticut. Not to say anything about Connecticut, but, so I think maybe something like that could have happened, some lunch meeting, with bagels and lox, and hey, get this guy there, right? Well, and then, I'm sure they do a lot of business, New York and Connecticut, and maybe Kathy could promise some things to Connecticut or whatever. That's what politics is. It's all about politicking.
And the Spanos have been in the game mostly at the state level for a very, very long time. So they're very, very savvy politicians, savvier than you would normally get, from the pool of politicians in a local government.
But that's the thing with career politicians and why, allowing people to stay in politics for forever and changing, extending term limits or eliminating terms creates this, right? It ultimately, absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. I learned that from Animal Farm. You ever read that book?
Absolutely.
I love that book.
A long time ago, but yeah.
Yeah, a long time ago. Absolutely. I read it in elementary school. It's a great book, though. It teaches you a lot about politics, actually, right?
Yeah, and it's Kathy Hochul with everything on her plate is not, spending, a week and a half trying to vet every single person who put in for,
Right.
and maybe who knows how many people even put in for that job.
Right.
She's listening to her advisors. Oh, the MTA police chief. Yeah, okay, that's like it's like our secondary police department here in the New York metropolitan area, behind the NYPD. So,
and her concern is her
that
election.
she paid a great deal of attention to be honest with you. Same thing with the Connecticut governor.
Right. And then she's worried about getting elected, right? That's really her priority. I'm sure, that entire time she was the, appointed governor, her focus was, how am I going to get elected? How am I going to make sure that I stay in this office? And so she wasn't.
And she's a fairly new governor. I mean, I wish her all the best. I'm not trying to say anything bad about her or would cause her any problems. I just, but I'm dedicated to exposing this guy and getting people to understand just how dangerous he really is, because leopards don't change their spots.
So when you gonna allow me to show the picture of him in the bikini?
Well, if I get my hands on one, you'll have it. Believe me. And
that's another thing. I mean, blackmail. I mean, who knows? I mean, that they use blackmail. There's I was reading an article written a while back by an individual alleging that Nick Spano was able to get James Sertivo, the registered sex offender, probation instead of jail time when he pled guilty to sodomy for the 14-year-old boy, because he threatened the judge in the case, during sentencing to expose the affair that judge was having with the spouse of another judge. Right, so they didn't want that blowing up, so they ended up, because they wondered, why did this guy just
surprise me?
Probation?
Nothing does surprise me anymore.
Yeah, so bribery is another thing, and that's what Epstein was known for. So anyway, Anthony, is 1 minute 30 minutes. We go hour and a half, perfect. Anything else you want to say before we wrap it up here?
No, I think we covered a lot of stuff tonight. It was good.
When cops use their radio, it is recorded somewhere. It would be interesting to hear the audio. Those 5 cops came all together at the same time. It's weird.
It would be nice to have some more information as far as like what happened initially, why they went to pull him over. I don't know if there's any recordings of that anywhere. We may never see that. Also, I'd like to see the coroner's report. I'd like to see, or just if not the coroner, the reports from the hospital. I want to see exactly what was the cause of death. They said I saw something in the headlines about extensive bleeding caused by a severe beating, but it didn't say that that's what caused his death, because a lot of times people bleed from beatings and don't die. I mean, that happens more often than not. I have, but I would like to see what the official cause of death was, and then we could maybe have some more information to analyze, tie into the bigger picture.
Well, the claims of that he was having an affair, messing around with the one of the police officers' wives is unsubstantiated. Right? I don't know why I just put that there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Officers who beat Tyree Nichols targeted him because he was allegedly dating one of their wives. Unsubstantiating, according to PolitiFact. So,
seems like
I
a
don't know.
juicy thing to make up to grab the headline, you know. But,
yeah.
I have no idea.
Well, folks, I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Anthony DiMaggio, 15-year veteran of the Yonkers Police Force, lieutenant. Perfect score on the lieutenant's exam, right? Immaculate record up until, you had to say something. You had to speak up, Anthony. How dare you speak up against corruption? And,
Maybe next week we'll start with the agreement that they wanted me to sign initially. And then
let's get into that.
We'll start getting into the report, the police report. The doctor's report.
Let's definitely get into that. Anthony DiMaggio, I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered, man. Thank you. Is it loud? You had your headphones on loud. Thank you, folks. Have a beautiful, blessed weekend. Thank you, Anthony. Take care. All right, get the solo. Folks, that's your episode for tonight. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Thank you for joining. Thanks for everyone who commented. And I'm going to be having that phone number from now on. So you can call in. Don't be afraid. You don't have to give me your name. You can be anonymous. Just stick on. Maybe I'll do a podcast where people can just call up about different things. But, try to stay on topic. But I love to hear from people. I love for people to call and actually talk instead of just the comments. That'd be dope. And if you want to just call up toward the end, actually, you can call up and say hello. Maybe it's something you want to know or talk about. And if you also need help with something, right? You ever heard of Help Me Howard? Well, I'm going to do Help Me Freddie. I don't know. Basement Politics, you can use that number. Give me a call. Leave a message. We'll get back to you. Let me know what your issue is. How can we help you? If we can help you, we will help you. Just let us know. Don't call for no money. I don't want you calling me borrowing $5,000, $10,000. I ain't got it. All right? I ain't got it. But if you have a rodent problem, let me know. If you are, being illegally evicted, let's say, give me a call. If you have a fire hydrant in front of your home that's laying flat on its side and it's been like that for a week, let me know. If you've been, messed with, harassed with, or anything from anyone, not anyone, officials. If you beefing with your sister, your brother, your spouse, well, I don't care about that. But if elected officials are harassing you, the building department or whoever, give us a call. We'll try and help you. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Thank you very much. Stand with us in our fight. Don't wait till it becomes yours. That's right. Absolutely. This is why, I do, again, Basement Politics, why I go back to why I did Basement Politics, and I spoke out against, my issues, things I was going through with the building department, but then it became about more than just me, right? And just my issues. Many other people here in the city of Yonkers were dealing with things similar to mine and other things that were just not fair. They weren't getting their justice, just something that, just was not right. And so, I wanted to put, information out to give people help, put their stories out, put out information, put these elected officials and any other officials on blast for doing things that they're not supposed to be doing, right? In order to help the residents, the people of the city of Yonkers. And we need to speak up. We all have to come together and speak up because it may not be your issue today, but it may be your issue tomorrow. And if you don't speak up today, then tomorrow you will be dealing with it, right? And at that point, it may be more difficult to try and resolve. So you have to join those who are, speaking out against injustices, corruption, police brutality. And this is not against any specific police departments, just in general, right? So we have to all speak out and support those who have been victims of, any injustice, discrimination, racism, classism, right? Homophobia, every other phobia, anti-Semitism, whatever, right? We must come out and speak out and join those who are dealing with it today. Because again, it could be your problem tomorrow. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate you joining the show and commenting. Thank you so much. God bless you and the family. Shout out to the Cater family. That's right. Shout out to the Cater family. Got a problem with that? Shout out to everybody here in the city of Yonkers. God bless. Have a good night. Freddie Vasquez. Peace out. Peace out.
You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez. Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez.
In another one, Mr. Rumo lied to me. And I don't vote for the person that lied to me. Thank you very much.
I had to end this quick because I'm greedy and I want somebody to butter chicken. So thank you.
Benefit him. Because he doesn't cover. He only talks trash. We are the real McCoy. So that my competition, the guy who always talks about me, an optical illusion that people are following him. The truth is,
Freddie wins. Fatality.
Thank you for watching Basement Politics with my husband, Freddie Vasquez.
Freddie wins. Fatality.
I was raised in housing. I was raised in housing. I don't think you were.